Hey, it's Greg Dooley with a special edition of the MVictors History Show brought to you by Underground Printing. And it was recorded at the home of author, historian, and super collector Jon Stevens. You want to support this show, like it, give me feedback, share it, subscribe on YouTube. If you have questions, or if you are or know a super collector like Jon, or if you have a question about a historic item, send it my way, and it may be part of a future show. A quick note on this episode. During the interview, Jon mentioned a telegram that he had from 1898. He mentioned it, but I actually hadn't seen the telegram yet and what it said. And I got to see it, of course, after the show, and my jaw dropped. It's for fans of like really old history in Michigan, really important moments in Michigan history. I think you'll really get a kick out of it. So obviously you'll get to see that in the episode. And without further ado, let's check out the incredible collection of Jon Stevens. I am inside the man cave, the museum-like setup of my friend, author, collector, Jon Stevens. And Jon, I'm thrilled to be here, man. This is really cool.
Thanks for having me. Thrilled to be a guinea pig, so to speak, of the podcast.
Yeah, he sure is. So this is one of the first remotes that I'm doing. So patience. I'm working on the audio production and all that good stuff. But this is incredible. This is my first time actually being here, and walking down the basement steps. Every inch of this place is covered. There's stuff in the back room. This is just a sweet setup. So what got you started doing this kind of thing?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, which is a story in its own right. My dad and I are big sports fans. We collected baseball cards and memorabilia, autographs from the Reds and the Braves. And I came up here for grad school, and I bought my first program when I came up here, and I just fell in love with it. And started buying tickets and programs. And about year 2000 is when I came up here for Michigan. And I met a collector named Ken McGee, who's pretty famous. And
well, definitely, and Ken McGee is famous in the community. He's a friend of mine. In fact, you guys collaborated on a couple books.
We did.
On history, the Little Brown Jug book, right? And the Ohio State book.
So Ohio State book.
I will definitely, I mentioned he's an author. I'll definitely put links to get those books in the show notes. And I helped out a lot with the Brown Jug book, a tiny bit, I think, with a photo or two of the Ohio State book. But awesome books. But is that how you met Kenny originally?
Yeah, I stumbled into his store and I bought some programs, and we became friends, authors together, collaborators, and then I would say a good chunk of my program or my collection has come from the McGee Store. So
awesome. So is there a specialty that you feel like amongst collectors that either you have one of the finest collections or a premium collection? Is there a category or stuff that you look for?
I'm up there in programs.
Okay.
Tickets, I have a ways to go. I have some pretty big holes, but I need 4 away programs from 1927 on up and 1 home program to have the entire collection for Michigan Stadium and programs.
So just to be clear, that's every program for every game since Michigan Stadium was open, home or away. Does that include bowls?
It includes bowl games.
Okay. So what home game are you missing? That's interesting.
1939 Iowa.
Okay.
Neil Kinnock and Tom Harmon.
1939
Yes.
Iowa. Have you seen it before?
I have. I know Kenny has one, and there's been one up on eBay. It's a fairly pricey program. I'm not sure 100% why it's so rare. Certainly for a Michigan program, other than the fact that it had Niall Kinnock and Tom Harmon.
Okay. Yes, and we beat Iowa in that game, I believe.
I do believe.
Yeah. Okay. But Kinnock won the Heisman that year. The next year, Harmon did. I think Harmon was the runner-up in the 39.
I believe he was.
Okay. So anything that, well, I'm going to call it out right now. As far as stuff that's super unique, one thing is the thing that's right behind you. And tell us what I'm looking at here.
These are original doors from Yost Field House from 1923. I stumbled upon a guy that was selling them in a barn, and I went out and picked them up. They're solid oak doors, 2.5 inches thick, and these are original doors from the exterior of Yost. They were discarded. I'm not sure exactly how the gentleman got them, if they were, from the trash or what, but I salvaged them from the barn, and when we finished the basement, we decided to hang them.
Awesome.
And they are extraordinarily heavy.
Yeah, I was going to say, so are they oak? It says oak on it.
Solid oak doors. They still have the panic hardware from the interior and the grill on the glass. I think the plexi is still in there. The one regret I have is that someone took away the hinges.
Yeah.
So
my gosh.
You can see where they painted over them and the remnants of the hinges, but I don't have the actual metal hinges that are on there.
It's interesting because we know how much care Yost took to the details of whatever he built, but especially the field house with the bricks, which was an earlier video that I did, and the doors. And look at those, the ornateness of what were the hinges, but the doors are beautiful. So where do you find, without giving away any secrets, and other than Kenny McGee's collection and store and things like that, where do you look for stuff, either for the game programs or for just stuff for your collection? Because it's clearly not just game programs, and I'll show a panoramic here of some of the things you have. It's beautiful, but where do you go?
Estate sales. Certainly when an unfortunate event of a collector that passes away, families tend to sell off their collections. So recently there's been a couple collectors that have passed away and their collections have been up for sale. And I had the fortune of helping one of the families sell some of their stuff. And so I was able to kind of have first dibs at some of the stuff from that estate. And then eBay and auction sites, Hunt, Heritage, those sites are really good.
So at this point, do you have relationships with some of the auction houses and some of the guys? I mean, I know
I don't with the auction houses, but I have a pretty good network of collectors, so we all kind of look out for each other. Jack Briegel he looks out for my tickets. I look out for his tickets. Recently, I was able to find one of the 6 that he needed, and we kind of did a mass trade and we helped each other out. Same thing with Kenny. Kenny, I know what he needs. He knows what I need, and it's kind of a fun little collectors group where everyone looks out for each other.
It's a great community, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this type of show, because really to get inside and hopefully hear some stuff like that. But it has been a great group of guys, and I know they're helping me without for some things. So
even other schools, I mean, there's a big rivalry with Michigan State, but collectors, it's fun. Some of I have a couple of good Michigan State collectors that, I need a bunch of tickets for Michigan State games, and they help me out, and I help them out with some of their Michigan tickets.
Very cool, very cool. So and it's tough to estimate some of this stuff, but what do you think is the most, say, valuable item that you have in your collection?
Valuable? Probably my Neil Snow scrapbook from 1898. That's got a plethora of newspaper clippings, and it's just one of a kind. You'll never see another Neil Snow scrapbook. So,
right.
I would say that's probably the most expensive. I don't know how expensive it is, but it's definitely the most rare piece that I have.
So this is timely because I've just done a couple of pieces and updates on Neil Snow. Basically, one of Michigan athletics' first superstars, really. All-American in football, captain of track, of baseball and football. Played on Yost's first team, the 1901 team, scored 5 touchdowns in the first Rose Bowl. Really the big man on campus. And so does anyone have as much Neil Snow stuff as you do, as far as you know?
As far as I know, I mean, I'm sure someone's got some other memorabilia from him, but I've got his high school scrapbook and his college scrapbook, which has baseball programs, autographs, and newspaper clippings from the 1898 Chicago game. I've got telegrams from his dad on that 1898 Chicago game, newspaper clippings from the Rose Bowl.
Awesome.
The only thing I'm really shy about is actually programs and tickets from the Neil Snow era. So I don't have any of that. But
so you mentioned 2 really important games. So those are probably, as far as early Michigan football, other than the first game, of course, in 1879, the 1898 Chicago game, of course, is not only the first, Big Ten championship. We joined in 1896, and one of the founding members. It was our first championship over Amos Alonzo Stagg, and of course, you mentioned the Victors. That's when Louis Elbel, after the game, wrote,
Victors.
He sure did. And then, of course, the first Rose Bowl, which anyone watching this is very familiar with. But Sano was part of both of those games, and I don't know how impactful he was in the 1898 game. I don't know how much we know about that.
Yeah, I don't think he was. He certainly didn't score 5 touchdowns, but he played. I don't know if he was as impactful, but
yeah.
It was really interesting to see the telegram, and maybe you can put that as a little screenshot later. The telegram from his dad.
Definitely.
So
that's cool. All right, so someone who wants to get started in collecting, it seems like eBay is the natural place to go, but it's also a feeding frenzy. Everyone's kind of looking at eBay. Any tips for collectors?
Focus. I say that now with a basement full of stuff, but be focused. I've decided I'm not doing football, or I'm not doing hockey and basketball, strictly football, and I've really put a focus on tickets and programs. And if I'm going to get anything that's going to hang up on the wall, it's going to have to be really unique and vintage for me. So I've stopped and kind of just put a focus on the really unique and vintage pieces.
Very good, man.
Some people can have the room to collect everything, the Danbury Mint, the Santa Clauses, the choo-choo trains, and everything like that. I just I appreciate the vintage stuff. So, but I know many collectors that the Danbury Mints and the trains and all that is something that they go crazy for. So
that's awesome. So I know you mentioned the programs, and you mentioned 1927, but you have quite a few that predate that.
True.
Including from that early Yost era. Do you have any earlier than that?
My earliest program is 1905.
Okay.
I have 3 programs from 1905: the Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Vanderbilt, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. And my goal is to have 1 program from every home game or every home year from 1920 on back. So
wow.
The 20s I'm pretty well represented in, but once you get into the 1919s, the teens and the 10s, they get really expensive, and I have no delusions that I'm going to ever be able to afford every single program from every single game.
Well, and you mentioned afford, because I've seen, and again, what someone's asking for on eBay isn't necessarily the price.
True.
But some of this stuff is very rare.
Yes.
But they go for over $1,000 when I see them. Some of them more. Probably gets if you get to that first Rose Bowl.
The first Rose Bowl, I think there's a collector's site called WorthPoint, and you can see what certain programs, tickets, and memorabilia sells for. I do believe that there was a Rose Bowl, 1902 Rose Bowl program that sold for upwards of $35,000.
It's amazing. So it's a big investment. So do you protect them in a particular way?
Yep.
I mean, does it get down to lighting and stuff like that too, or
somewhat? I don't have any of them displayed in here, but they're all in archival paper or archival storage bags and boards, and they're very old ones I put in plastic cases.
Very cool. So I have to mention. We're sitting here and we're both Little Brown Jug historians. So tell me about a couple cool things in your Brown Jug collection.
Some of the cool things that I have a newspaper clipping from 1903 from the game. And I have a panorama of Ferry Field from the 1910 game, the first time they played for the Jug here in Ann Arbor. So I have a really great panorama. And then I have a really unique plaque that just says the Little Brown Jug in Minnesota and Michigan on it, and it's from Jostens, and it's from Minnesota, but it doesn't have a date or any description on it.
Very cool.
No one has seen another one, and so that's probably my coolest Little Brown Jug piece.
Cool. So you're a young guy, right?
Somewhat.
Yeah. Well, compared to me, maybe. But have you? I mean, it's a little early. But have you had any thoughts about what you want to do with this collection as you get older? Are there people in your family that think you're crazy, or the other way, like,
everyone thinks we're crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fellow collector. When people walk down here, they're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I have a daughter now, so I have no idea if she's going to want any of this. So I would imagine some of this will turn into a college fund or
Yeah.
a retirement fund.
That's it from Jon Stevens' basement here, and I hope you enjoy this show. If you got any questions about this interview or about the collection, or if you've got that 1939 Iowa 1939 Iowa program out there, let us know. Thanks for doing this, man.
You're welcome.
Again,
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
It's an honor to be here. This place is amazing. Talk about the ultimate spot to watch a football game, surrounded by all this stuff that I love and you love. It's beautiful. So thank you for the time, and thanks for watching the MVictors History Show.